Someone said it was a battle to save the world from a cruel fate. Someone said all hope for the future of humankind rested squarely on our shoulders.
Counting down. 3, 2, 1.
My name is Joel McDonald, and I was the ADR Director for Robotics Notes.
I am Tatum, and I was an adaptive writer on Steins and also played Okabe.
I'm John Burgmeier. I'm the head writer for Funimation. So I oversaw the writing crews for Chaos Head, Robotics Notes, and Steins.
System link online.
Connect phone droid pad.
It's the red cable. We're all green. This is the final call. Go!
Gun barrel! Forward!
Well, the Science Adventure series is the series of Chaos Head and Steins and Robotics Notes, I guess roughly in that order, and just the three independent series are kind of tied together by this through line of the importance of different scientific elements and how they affect our lives. At least that's my understanding, but I could be way off.
I agree with that.
All right, sweet. All right, cool.
I think you kind of got it.
Cool.
They're all sort of interconnected in very surprising ways.
Right. Yeah.
It's really fun. That's the fun of the series is watching. Oh wait, that's a reference.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Clever.
Yeah.
Welcome to Iro. Update was successful.
Geez, do you ever stop gaming?
Directing the third in the series really was a little stressful. It's always kind of stressful to take over a project, and I know that this wasn't like that in like the most traditional sense, but it was kind of being, in that it was a continuation of the previous two. I always had this kind of added stress of maintaining the quality and the style that the previous episodes and series, already kind of laid the bar for. So, but it was great, and it's also really fun to go and do research in English, which is something that we don't get to do often. But to get to watch the previous two dubs was great. And honestly, and I gotta geek out. Like Steins Gate's one of my favorite shows. Like it really is. And I thought it was brilliantly written and acted. And then Todd was in Chaos Head, so. I found a lot of things to love about all the different shows, and it made it so much more important to me to kind of match, at least attempt to match the kind of quality that you guys had already laid down. And so yeah, I mean it was a lot of fun, and we kind of found ways to make it our own and make it not just. And it's in no way like an homage to the other two or anything, but we kind of had to find our own footing, for its own purposes. But.
Well, you have to. You have
Sure.
to if you're going to be true to the spirit of the show that's right
Absolutely,
there in front
right.
of you. And
Yeah,
if
we really treated it as if it was an autonomous, individual, kind of separate thing. But knowing all the ins and outs, and the first time that we got Afia, who played. She played a couple of characters, Irie and Gezi, but the first time that she whispers, "Those eyes, whose are they?" from Chaos Head, and like I knew the line was there. I was looking at the line before she did it, but when she whispered it, I was just like, "Oh, I know what that means." It was really cool. I loved kind of being on the inside.
It's that kind of thing is fun. I had a similar experience with getting to work on the adaptive side of things for Steins. I knew that it was already related to Chaos Head, which I was familiar with, and I thought, of course, it was more thematically related than I guess situationally, because there was only one or two very, very subtle and just fleeting, almost wink, wink, nudge, nudge references to that. Daru makes one on someone's online handle being from Chaos Head, Nightheart. And there's a handful of other things, but I mean, again, you have to sort of approach the show on its own terms and just kind of let whatever connections lead you to Chaos Head or will lead you to Robotics Notes kind of just be there. And I think Steins has so much internally that is that takes quite a lot of post-it notes and foil hats just to get right. That I was like, oh, okay. I was actually I loved the occasional external reference to something like Chaos Head, because I thought, oh, yay, something outside the show, something that's completely, I mean, not entirely outside the show, but at least outside just the tangle of timelines that is Steins Gate. It's a real lot of fun. It's fun to write on something and to work on something that is going to fit into a larger context that is yet to unfold, because Robotics Notes, of course, wasn't out yet.
Right.
But I knew of it. I knew that it was going to be coming down the wire and be related, and so that's kind of fun to say. Like, wonder how they're going to tie this all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat. It makes you feel like you're part of a continuum, which Okabe can tell you is very important.
Of course, when we started Chaos Head, well, at that time we had no idea that this was part of a larger venture. It was only a couple years after working on Chaos Head that Steins Gate showed up, and my first clue was the title. Oh, look, the semicolon.
Right.
This means something. So then, upon exploring the show itself, there's a couple of different references to Nightheart and to Blood Tune, I guess the anime from Chaos Head, and then then Robotics notes it has Knives, the recurring character, and all that sort of stuff.
Hi.
You're behind this? Hold on, I don't understand, Dad. What's going on here?
Please allow me to explain.
The thing I found interesting is that each of the shows is very self-contained. I mean, it's sort of the same way the characters begin their journey. They're very much in a very small reality. They live in a very small world of just themselves and a couple of friends and this comfortable little reality that they've constructed around themselves. And the whole adventure that they go through is that world opens up. And that they realize that it's much wider and there's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And sort of, they're carrying that over between the shows that, this one particular character, say in Chaos Head, is going through this adventure here, but meanwhile, there's a whole time travel thing going on, a little bit later, and a whole, robot club, and all of these things are going on together, and it's a much wider and much weirder universe, because of it.
That's lovely. That's a great way of looking at it. That all of them kind of being about characters finding out the world they're living in is far bigger and stranger than they.
And that big strange world depends solely on them. It turns out. And
right.
A lot of them,
happens,
right. Crack the mind open. Oh.
Right.
Wow. I'm not the same person just now. Like, I've just changed profoundly just having this conversation. I'm serious. I'm like, wow, that puts a new, wow. Never mind, sorry, let's go on. Sure. Before I cease to exist. I just slowly fade away.
Who's Gezi? Signal interference or something?
It gives anybody, any artist trying to write or animate a show that touches on these themes, it's going to give them so much more veracity, so much. It's going to make them resonate with your audience so much more when you actually pull from pop culture concepts and especially intriguing ones that are still up in the air as to whether or not they're true. Like John Teeter and all of that, that was a real thing. Some guy did, posted and convinced a lot of people that he was from the future, and that was a real thing. Incorporating that into Steins Gate was brilliant because not only it's not just there as part of the background to make you think, oh yeah, this takes place here, and there, and I read that. I mean, it actually ends up being integral to the plot. And that's fascinating. That's a difficult thing to do, to take some pre-existing thing, some pop culture artifact, and weave it into the story so successfully, because this is something that everyone that you're trying to reach already has their own profound relationship to, more than likely. And so they're going to be judging you on how you handle that material rather than just taking it as part of the story. I think it's incredibly bold, and I have an enormous amount of respect for the creators of all three series for doing that, because I think it just adds one more challenging element to what is already an incredibly challenging show or series of shows to be working on.
Well, it's like it strikes me as like Forrest Gump on a very nerdy, dark scale. I mean, because and what I like about the Committee of 300 and these like kind of conspiracy theory, pop culture kind of references, is that they're obscure enough to make people who don't understand them or know of them like want to research them, like they did us. But at the same time, whenever you like throw in like a moment from history or like a landmark or a person that people already identify with and they know a part of their living world, it makes the medium seem so much more real, I guess, or at least, I don't know, that's kind of how I took it, but I don't know, it adds an element that really just gives it so much depth and so much room to play in.
Right, right. I also think, it kind of just thinking out loud here, that when you bring something like, for example, the whole John Teeter thing or the Committee of 300 thing, and into play like that, most people who will have known what those things are prior to will have encountered them through a medium which is not terribly dissimilar than than the show itself. Yeah. So the question becomes, in this weird, very meta way, which I don't know was intentional or not, though I suspect it was, is to question, well, this may be just as real or not, but either way, what's fiction and what isn't?
Right.
Is a dramatization of this any more fictional than the original might be, and your encounter of that? I mean, what is the difference between fiction and reality?
Well, and is it meant to enlighten the audience or to kind of throw them a red herring?
This is an extremely large sum.
Oh, that's a good one, ma'am. Since I've explained it to you a bunch of times already.
I said again, or weren't you listening?
My favorite character in Robotics Notes was Akio, who's played by Lindsay Seidel, because she's just this lovable, really annoying person. Like she's the driving force behind the entire show, because she's the only one, at least in the first several episodes, who is committed to anything, really. And Kaito is just kind of this lackadaisical, he just doesn't really care. He's perfectly happy to float through life. But she is just this pestering, just very, I don't know that she was the valedictorian, but she reminds me of mine from my high school. Just like, it didn't matter if we have homework, can you give me some? But there was something about her that was just so endearing and so fun to, you really rooted for her, which was great, because in the first several episodes, it's difficult to find anybody else to root for, just because everyone else is kind of self-centered and just worried about their own stuff. And so Akio was a lot of fun for me within Robotics Notes. But I have to say that across the entire spectrum, I think Okabe is definitely my favorite of the whole arc.
I'd have to second that. Across the whole spectrum of shows.
I have a very ambivalent relationship to that character, because I love him and I loved playing him and I think he's fascinating, but it was really hard to get away from him for a long time, because he's in every single scene, virtually every single scene. In fact, I think there's only one scene in which he's not featured, and you learn why from watching the series why that has to be so. It has to be told from his perspective, because he's the only one that's remembering everything that happens. But then when there's so much overlap between the writing and the actual recording process, that my typical day was to come in, work for several hours at top. At like 11, because there's no. Okabe is constantly at 11. There is no, whether he is crying and screaming or pleading for the life of a friend, or whether he's just being declamatory and ridiculous, you're just, by the end of the day, you're spent. And then I have to come home and write his dialogue and be like, ha 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 ha, I don't envy the actor that has to say these lines. Wait, that's me. And so I just never had a chance to get away from him for a long time. So I actually had a lab coat that I used to wear whenever. I know, right? It sounds so ridiculous. In addition to the tinfoil hat, I had this lab coat, and so it's the only time I've ever done something like this for a character, because I got so involved that I needed something to pull myself away from him, because it got to a point where there were a few days there in the booth, and Colleen will tell you all about them, where the line between Tatum and Okabe ceased to exist, and I'm like, I don't really know who I am anymore. And Colleen would be like, can we find Michael again? Because Okabe's taking the reins, and that's a little scary. Yeah. And but so when we were done, my last day on the show, I came home and I took the lab coat, which I used to write in. I wouldn't bring it to the studio to wear.
Okay, I was gonna ask.
I wasn't that crazy. But I took it and I took it out back and I burned it in kind of a Viking funeral scene, which is something appropriate for Okabe. Cool. Is this whole Viking Norse mythology references. But having said that, he's not my favorite character in the show, in any of them. Actually, my favorite character, because of what she represented to me by the time it was all over, was Mayuri. I think Mayuri is a wonderful creation, and I had a very difficult relationship to that character as a writer in the beginning, because I simply did not know how to get across her innocence and this vulnerability, and yet she's such a strong character for all that. And I did not know how on earth I was going to approach it as a writer. And it was only after I sat down with the other adaptive writer, Patrick Seitz, who was brilliant, who said, you know who this reminds me of? And he and I had a long talk about it, and I thought, oh my God. And so it suddenly clicked that this character actually reminded me of someone I've known for years, and it's just that kind of person that I think, as Patrick put it beautifully, just the sort of person that has absolutely no exoskeleton, and yet is somehow more alive in what they do, and just happier, and just can deal with the punches as they come more than anyone else. And she's such an interesting counterpoint to Okabe's whole approach to life, where he's just got layer upon layer of defense mechanism to kind of protect him, to cushion him against the blows of reality. And Mayuri has none of that. She's just who she is. And she's happy, and she's, when she's sad, she's sad. She just owns who she is at every single moment. And in a weird way, whereas Okabe is kind of the emotional and intellectual constant from timeline to timeline, Mayuri is sort of, for want of a better word, kind of the spiritual principle that survives from timeline to timeline. That kind of is his conscience, I guess.
Okay.
Which I think is a really fascinating concept, and she's a lovely character. That and in the middle of a very what can be a very dark and emotionally raw show, I think her little chicken tenders song.
Breath of fresh air.
That was man. That was something. Like Patrick. I have to give Patrick the credit for that one, and he just kind of wrote me. He was like, This will endure. When you're on a chicken bender, grab a box of chicken tenders, bok bagok.
Well, just to not cover any ground that's already been covered, I'll give a shout out to Doc in Robotics Notes.
Oh yeah.
The crotchety old man. Oh, you young whippersnappers, you'll never do it. Oh, here, let me help you and do everything.
Right.
The whole you guys rock. I like it.
I'd be that.
Yeah, I had our Bruce Elliott audition for him the whole time knowing you are this guy. And it was great because there were several times that he would stop and ask me how do you want me to? And I was like, just do your thing, man. You were the differences between him and Doc, I think, are probably fewer than he would like to admit. But yeah, he's a great one. I love Doc. He's a crotchety old coot, but he's lovable too.
Kind of character that makes you look forward to getting old.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can be that guy.
Right.
Yay.
He's rocking out his
There is
melon.
an archetype that applies to older guys. We can have fun and be that crotchety old person.
Yep.
It scares children and at the same time encourages them. I can't wait to be old.
Please, I don't have any money. I'm just a poor little high school student. That's it. How about a student discount?
Forget about it. I got a living to make here, You don't like it, you can leave.
I would love to see the characters from Steins Gate return, and now that they're older, I would love to see them, particularly Kurisu and Okabe, in the context of the future they were trying to avoid. I would love to see Okabe in full-on, revolutionary mode.
Yeah.
Oh right, as the leader of the resistance.
Exactly. That would be wonderful.
Well, it would be great to see, because what the from Chaos Head to Robotics Notes is what 11 or 12 year difference, from start to finish, something like that. Mm-hmm. It would be great to see it in the future with all of these characters converging, because there's so many. So many paths that have been kind of laid out at the end of each series, as far as what is my destiny kind of thing, or what needs to be done. And so I'd love to see what is done. That would be fantastic. I would love to kind of get to know those people as adults.
I don't know how yet, but I swear I will make it work. I have to, because Gunvarel is waiting.